This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, where passionate fans make powerful content. Check out theclashingconferences.com and join the squad today. What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for April 2nd, 2026. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. A rainy, cold, much different than yesterday, Thursday edition, but April Fool's is over, so thank God I don't have to work as hard as I did yesterday for that. But let's start with the Phils. What a game and much needed, by the way, both for the team, for Bryce, but for most of 6 1/3 innings, 6.5 innings, it didn't look any good. Christopher Sanchez labored, but did go 5 1/3, 1 earned run, 7 Ks, 4 walks. And I think, to me, that's a testament to just how good he is. He didn't have his best stuff, and he worked through it and did what he needed to do. Dude's a good pitcher. He's a stud. But kept them in it. And then the bullpen wasn't sharp, I guess. So they were down 5-1 in this game. Not sure if anybody continued to watch it or what. But then JT hit a homer. Bryce hit a homer. And then some excitement in the ninth. Edmundo Sosa, who I love, with a 2-strike game-tying single. And then he followed it up in the 10th with a great double play. Dude ripped a shot off of Duran, jumped, caught it, easily doubled up. And then, of course, the rookie, Justin Crawford, with the game-winning RBI in the 10th. Justin went 3 for 5. Not bad for a kid who, all he does is hit ground balls. I'll take it. They were able to salvage a 3-3 homestand, losing 2 of 3 to the Rangers, but taking 2 of 3. Hopefully this is a spark they needed. Now they're going out to Colorado and then San Francisco and Nick Castellanos. So it should be interesting. But that means West Coast baseball, which I absolutely hate. But not the best. But again, they woke up when they needed to. And I think, I talk about it all the time, back in that 2018, they were never out of a game. And if this team is going to play that way, where they were down to their final strike, they were getting ready to head off with a 5-3 loss, but they battled back. If they're going to be able to do that, I will take that every single time. Off today before opening up with the Rockies tomorrow. All right, and then the Sixers followed it up. 2 games in the past week where they've scored 150 points, this time 153-131 over the Wizards. Paul George likely got drug tested again last night, threw in 39, 6 assists, really took over in that third quarter. The Sixers, they were down, I think, at halftime, and then all of a sudden came out and exploded. This was a fun second half to watch. Tyrese Maxey with 28. They were great shooting the ball all night. No Joel, who was sick. Again, if he's sick, great. If not, if they're just playing a game here, I'm fine with that as well. But they're currently tied for 6th with the Raptors, who they have the tiebreaker on. Apparently they split the regular season series, but the Sixers have a better division record. So that bodes well. And they're still only a game and a half back of the Hawks. Hawks do have the tiebreaker over them. Buckle up. It's going to be fun. I told you. I'm all in. They take on the Timberwolves tomorrow down at the X. Flyers have a huge game tonight at the X versus the Red Wings, a team that they are tied with in the standings. Flyers currently 2 points out of that final wild card spot, but they're only 3 points out of third place in the Metropolitan Division. So they're all big games at this point, but it starts tonight. They have a 22% chance of making the playoffs. not the best, but I like it with the way the schedule is lining up. But it doesn't mean anything if they don't win. You got to beat the players. So looking forward to watching that game tonight. No Phils. It's all Flyers. Hopefully Porter Martone can get his first NHL goal. All right. Through all of that, the big story yesterday was Tim McManus released a novel on ESPN. I did read the whole thing. Apparently on Jalen Hurts, and he has 12 sources from in the Eagles organization, and everybody was freaking out. I'm sure you've heard about it. And honestly, I think my take on this, there was no new information presented in this. And I like Tim McManus, and I'm not knocking him for the article because he had the confirmed sources, all good. But, I mean, the things it talked about were things we already knew. Jalen doesn't like going under center. Jalen doesn't like motion. Jalen changes plays at the line. He's detached from his teammates. Like, these are all things over the past 3-4 years we've heard. I think the biggest takeaway is it confirms it. But this was always going to be a huge season for Jalen anyway. It's kind of the whole shit or get off the pot for him. Yes, he won the Super Bowl MVP, but I've said it all along. He could have played better last year. He does have that winning gene. But to me, if this is the case, you got to be a better teammate. You have to do what's best for the team to win, because in the NFL, everybody adjusts. Everything is a fluid. All right, we need to figure this out. And to me, I feel as though some of those things fall on coaching. And I know he is the franchise quarterback, Super Bowl MVP, but whether that's Nick, whether that is whoever the offensive coordinator is. Now, I'm not taking any of the blame from Kevin Petula last year, and I've gone on record and said this a lot of times. There's a lot of blame to go around for last year. But if this is something that is consistent, you have 12 people essentially saying the same story. So this is a lot more than where there's smoke, there's fire. This is a legitimate, okay, this is an issue. It talked about A.J. Brown, and again, nothing new there that they don't communicate. They don't do this. And I just feel like this is a make or break season for Jalen. And I know there's going to be a lot of pro Jalen people. I'm a pro Jalen person. I don't like the fact that he gets ripped the way he does. However, if this is the case, if this is how people, and again, it's 12 people out of how many people work for the Eagles and our offense and everything. But if this is what needs to be done or what's going on, then I think that falls on the coaches. The coaches need to say, Jalen, this is what you got to do. And there's talk about a contract extension, all this. I would stay away from the contract extension right now until you kind of take that next step, take that leap. Like Jordan is his mentor and he tries to emulate him. Basketball is a different game. Jordan can be a total dick in the Bulls or in the NBA with the Bulls. Also, and this is not a knock against Jalen, you are not Michael Jordan either. If you were Patrick Mahomes and you were doing this, it might be a little bit different. And again, I love Jalen, not saying that, but I don't know. I've always thought that this was sort of like a legacy-defining moment this season for Jalen. And, I mean, you could talk about the offensive coordinators, this, that, but the offensive coordinators are not the ones telling you, okay, I'm changing the play to this, or I'm changing the play to that. And the people in the building are sticking up for him, and they've kind of enabled that. They talked about the play that he changed in the Green Bay game where he went deep to AJ and it was incomplete. And you saw Nick on the sidelines going, why? But then Nick came out and said it was on him. So they're sticking up for him. They're covering for him, enabling him. So I'm anxious to see with sort of this brain trust of guys they have on offense now, what comes of this. Because if it's more of the same, then maybe it's not a Brian Johnson problem. Maybe it's not a Kellen Moore problem. Maybe it's not a Kevin Patullo problem. Maybe it's a Jalen Hurts problem. Maybe it's a Nick Sirianni problem. And again, this isn't like when we were kids growing up watching where it was sort of like you kind of do this, this, and this. This is like the NFL is constantly changing. So if he's not going to fit your system, and this is a problem because right now it's AJ. And as long as the team is winning, I think it masks a lot of things. But if they go in with another season similar to what they have last year, you're going to have more and more people becoming unhappy. So huge, huge season for Jalen coming up. It was a good article. Like I said, I liked Tim McManus. It was long, but I didn't really get any new information out of it. These are all things that we either knew or we suspected. So I don't necessarily think it's a bombshell. I do think, and this is me kind of thinking outside the box here, I think with this and knowing the situation with he and AJ and knowing that he has to work on things, maybe he sucks it up and goes and they work it out with AJ and then AJ ends up staying. I think that is a possibility. So we'll see, but would love to know your thoughts on this. Am I kind of glossing over this? But to me, I don't necessarily think it's a big story, only because there was no new information presented. Like we knew this. We knew Jalen doesn't like a lot of motions, doesn't like to use the middle of the field, doesn't like to go under center, was changing plays. We saw it in the one Seattle game a couple of years ago. We saw it in the Green Bay game. He just sort of does his own thing. And again, to me, that goes more onto the coaching staff than it does Jalen, because truthfully, they've allowed them to do it. Like if I allow my kids to do certain things and then they go out and do those things and then I cover for them or don't address it, and then it compounds and goes year after year after year, is that the kid's fault or is that my fault? And that's sort of where I'm at with the whole Jalen thing. But love to know your thoughts. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Should we be concerned that maybe the culture in it's not Nova, it's the Jefferson Care or whatever complex, but is the culture maybe not what we thought it was? Or is there a crack in the foundation of it? I mean, all of these questions are fair based on this article sort of confirming what we've already known, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? Hit me up. All right, yesterday's trivia question. Eric Lindros had 6 assists in a game. He also had a goal that game in February 1997, breaking Bobby Clark's record. So thank you to everyone who reached out. Lots of guesses for Giroux, but no, it was Big E back in 1997. Some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott, and continue to spread the word. We have Brotherly Birds Breakdown out where we talk AJ and free agency. Next episode coming up in a couple weeks where we get you ready for the draft. I'm sure we're going to touch on this Jalen Hurts story, so we'll see where that goes. But go check that out wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. Want to show off your Philly pride without saying a word? Philly Goat has you covered. From tees, hoodies, shoes, and hats, their gear screams Philly louder than an Eagles fan at the vet. Whether you're tailgating in South Philly or trying to flex down the Jersey Shore, do it in style. Hit up phillygoat.com, use the promo code Jim Montgomery, and get 10% off your order. Philly Goat, because being Philly ain't a choice, it's a way of life. Go Birds! All right, April 2nd. First, we're going to go back to 1992, and the Phillies make a move on this day for one of their greatest players ever to put on the pinstripes. They sent Jason Grimsley to Houston for Curt Schilling. Curt started that season off in the bullpen, picked up some starts later in the season, and we all know how 93 worked out. He became the ace of that staff. Huge in the World Series in the postseason. Spent 9 years in Philly, won 101 games, had a 3.35 ERA, 61 complete games, over 1,500 strikeouts, led the league in strikeouts twice, becoming the last Philly to, probably last Philly ever, to go over 300 strikeouts in a season. He is number 8 all-time in the Phillies with wins, number 10 in innings pitched, number 6 in strikeouts, and of course, he is in the Wall of Fame. But we'll never forget that 93 World Series. Now, kind of a controversial figure off the field, and some people speculate that's why he is not in the Hall of Fame. I went on, had some success in Boston and Arizona. Who can forget the bloody sock? But a lot of his off-the-field thoughts and political beliefs seems to be speculating why he's not in the Hall of Fame. To me, he's a Hall of Fame player. I mean, he's won World Series with 2 different teams, gone with 3 different teams, won a Cy Young, one of the biggest clutch pitchers in Major League Baseball history in the postseason. I think he belongs in, but let me know your thoughts on that. Again, controversial with his political and outside beliefs, but to me, I think the numbers speak for themselves. He is a Hall of Famer, and truthfully, I think if you're looking, and a lot of people last year started making the case for Cole Hamels to be in the Hall of Fame, I think if Cole Hamels is getting Hall of Fame consideration, then Curt Schilling absolutely should be in. But it's controversial, so let me know your thoughts on Curt Schilling. Is he a Hall of Famer? All right. And then April 2nd was a big day in the history of the Villanova Wildcats basketball team. First couple days of April, actually. We talked about the 85 championship yesterday. But first, in 2016, it was a battle of 2 seeds in the Final Four. Number 6 ranked Villanova taking on number 7 Oklahoma. 2 familiar foes. They seem to have played each other a lot of times here in the tournament. In the Final Four with a spot in the championship on the line. And it was all Villanova from the start. They led by 14 at halftime and then outscored the Sooners by 30 in the second half, cruising to the final with a 95-51 win. Josh Hart went for 25 points, 8 rebounds. Chris Jenkins had 18, setting up that magical final against the North Carolina Tar Heels. And then 2 years later, the number 1 seeded Villanova Wildcats took on the number 3 seed Michigan Wolverines for the national championship. And this was another game that was all Villanova. Mikal Bridges had 19, but off the bench with 31 was Dante DiVincenzo. I got it today. Came off the bench for 31, 67% shooting as Villanova won their second title in 3 years. Dante DiVincenzo. Got it. Took me all through the month of March to finally get it. But Villanova beats Oklahoma on this day in 2016 to go to the final, and then wins the final against Michigan on this day in 2018, led by Dante DiVincenzo. I'm going to say it as many times as I can now. DiVincenzo. All right, and then fast forward to 2019, 1 year later, fresh off a season-opening sweep of the Atlanta Braves, Phillies head down to D.C. with their new free agent signing of Bryce Harper. Bryce returns home to Washington very early in the season for the first time, and as you'd expect, he was booed loudly every single at-bat. But always the showman. Bryce put on a show, went 3 for 5, 3 RBI, a double, a 2-run homer, a shot to right center. Maikel Franco also added a home run. Odubel Herrera had 3 doubles as the Phillies beat the Nationals 8-2 to start 8-2 to start the season 4-0. Unfortunately, the Nationals would get the last laugh as they won the World Series that year. Still can't get over the fact that the Nationals won a World Series before the Phillies have won another one. Hard to believe, Harry. All right. You never get a second chance to make a first impression in Philly. First impressions last forever. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're bad. Sometimes they're ugly. Sometimes they're all 3. But this month we're looking at first impressions that fit into all 3 categories. Yesterday we talked about Michael Carter Williams. Today, Phillies trade Turner. And not the best start to his 2023 season after signing that big contract. Was hitting 235, 10 homers, 34 RBI into August that season. Then, of course, remember the whole standing ovation. And after the standing ovation, he took off and had a pretty solid season. To this day, though, the numbers are still, or the jury is still out on Trey Turner. His numbers are down based on what his career averages are. We talk all the time about Rob Thompson. Look at the back of the baseball card. Well, since he's been in Philly, the back of the baseball card is showing a different story for Trey Turner. Did lead the league in hitting last year. He's made an all-star team in Philly. Defensively, he's worked to improve. We'll see. But as I said, the jury is still out on this impression. Trey needs to have a good season this year and a good postseason run, I think, to kind of change that narrative. We'll say this is sort of I wouldn't necessarily call this an ugly first impression, but not the best. Not the best. But we're only 4 years into that contract, so we have a few more years to figure out Trey's impression. But that is today's. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I'll be honest, I think a lot of people, a lot of Philly fans, if you listen to the media, you read stuff on social media, a lot of people are still out on Trey Turner based on the fact that his numbers have dipped a little bit and he's not been that piece that we thought he was. And I know for me, it's that swing, man. It just, when he swings and misses, it just bothers me. But as I said, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So we have some time to figure it out. And then finally today, it is Thursday, time for a little Throwback Thursday. Brought to you by Lotwin. Get your 3D custom height chains from Lotwin.com. Use the promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off your order. Youth sports, spring sports, baseball, softball, lacrosse, all of that. Spring soccer is kicking off. These things make great gifts to celebrate on the sideline, like a home run chain or a goal chain or something. So Lotwin has you covered. They'll put your team's logo, whatever you need, they'll work with you. So go to Lotwin.com and use that promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off of your order. All right. So this is the anniversary of the national final for the women's 2000 NCAA tournament, played in Philadelphia at the FU Center. And there is a ton of Philly connections here throughout the teams. And obviously it was played at the FU Center in Philly. And the teams were UConn, who were coached by Norristown's Geno Auriemma, Penn State, who is the local school, and everybody, it seems like Penn State alumni, despite the fact it drives me crazy. Penn State alumni are everywhere. They were actually coached by Renee Portland, who was from Broomall, who actually played at Immaculatus. He had that connection as well. Rutgers, who were coached by Vivian Stringer, who coached at Cheney State and had taken them to the Final Four as well. And then Tennessee, who one of the bigger names back then in women's high school and college basketball was Kristen Clement, who went to O'Hara. She was on that Tennessee team. But then it featured future stars Sue Bird, Tamika Catchings, Diana Taurasi, kind of like a who's who of women's college basketball. But on April 2nd, 2000, the final pitted UConn versus Tennessee, sort of the new up-and-coming UConn Huskies versus the old guard, Pat, why can't I think of her name now? Pat Summitt versus Geno Auriemma, sort of kind of symbolized the changing of the guard. And it was UConn beating Tennessee 71-52. It was only UConn's second title in their fourth Final Four under Geno, but it was the start of the dynasty. Since that day, UConn would go on to be in 13 more Final Fours and win 8 more titles. So it definitely was a changing of the guard here in Philly when UConn beat Tennessee. But This game set a record for fans at a college basketball game, men's or women's, in Pennsylvania history with 20,060 fans. Just was an absolute incredible weekend for the women's game. And of course, the local connection, UConn, coached by Norristown's Geno Auriemma, won their second final. So that is Throwback Thursday. Kind of a forgotten thing that we had the women's Final Four here that year. I remember for some reason I was at Dave & Buster's and the Tennessee team came in and they had one of the little rooms off to the side. And it was actually one of the few times I was starstruck. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's Pat Summitt as I'm in Dave & Buster's drinking Miller Lite. But I digress. But that is Throwback Thursday, brought to you by Lotwin. Go to lotwin.com for your 3D custom height chains and use the promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off of your order. And then the trivia question is based off of that. 20,060 fans packed in to see that national championship game, setting the record for most fans at a Pennsylvania basketball game, men's or women's. Not the record anymore. What is the current record for number of fans, and what event, what game was it at? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531 or the Discord channel, which is the link in the description. But what is the current record for fans at a basketball game in Pennsylvania, and what game was it? On this day in 2019, Bryce Harper homers against his former team as the Phillies beat the Nationals 8-2 to move to 4-0 on the season. 2018, Villanova wins their second national championship in 3 years, beating Michigan pretty badly. And Dante DiVincenzo led the way with 31 points for the Wildcats. 2016, they dismantle Oklahoma en route to the final, setting up that big, huge final between them and North Carolina. And in 1992, the Phillies trade for Curt Schilling, who will go on to be one of the best pitchers in their history, as well as help lead them to the World Series in 1993. We'll have more on the Flyers as they have a huge game tonight. Phillies are off, but we'll update you on the Sixers and Flyers standings tomorrow. And, of course, get you ready for the weekend. Spend our Fridays with AI. Looking forward to it. But let me know your thoughts on the whole Jalen Hurts thing. That's kind of where I want to go and talk about today, just because, I mean, I get it. It's a big-ish story, but I don't think there was any new information that, like, it wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe that. It's kind of like, yeah, like that kind of is what do we expect it? But let me know your thoughts. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for April 2nd, 2026. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.